Victoria Ashford had always known her stepmother Diana was jealous of her relationship with her father, but she never imagined the woman would try to destroy the most important day of her life. Standing in her apartment at 2 a.m., 3 weeks before her wedding, Victoria stared at the email that had shattered her world. A message from her wedding planner canceling all services due to unprofessional behavior and payment disputes. This makes no sense, Victoria whispered to herself, scrolling through similar emails from her florist, photographer, and caterer. I paid everyone in full months ago. The final blow came in a text from her fiancé David. My mother is having second thoughts about our wedding. She says your family has been calling her with concerns about your mental stability. We need to talk. Victoria's hands trembled as she realized what was happening. Diana had been systematically destroying her wedding from the inside. But this wasn't just about ruining one day. This was about destroying her relationship entirely. What Diana didn't know was that Victoria Ashford wasn't just any bride-to-be. She was a licensed private investigator who specialized in corporate espionage and fraud cases. She'd been building her reputation for 5 years, and she had resources that most people could only dream of. The next morning, Victoria called in sick to her regular job and began the most important investigation of her career. She started with the wedding vendors, using her professional contacts to trace the source of the cancellations. What she found made her blood boil. Diana had been impersonating Victoria over the phone, claiming to be dissatisfied with services and demanding refunds. She'd even forged Victoria's signature on cancellation forms, using letterhead she'd somehow obtained. But the real masterstroke was how she convinced each vendor that Victoria was having a nervous breakdown and becoming increasingly erratic. She told me you've been calling her crying every day, saying you didn't want to get married. The wedding planner confided when Victoria met her in person. She said your family was worried about your mental health and that the wedding needed to be postponed indefinitely. Victoria's investigation revealed that Diana had been building this campaign for months. She'd been secretly recording their conversations, then editing them to make Victoria sound unstable. She'd been calling David's family members, pretending to be concerned about Victoria's erratic behavior, and sharing fabricated stories about her past. The breakthrough came when Victoria discovered Diana's social media activity. The woman had been posting in private Facebook groups, claiming to be a concerned stepmother dealing with a mentally ill stepdaughter who was ruining the family. She'd been sharing intimate details about Victoria's life, including private conversations and embarrassing photos from her teenage years. But Diana's most devastating move was targeting Victoria's professional reputation. She'd been calling Victoria's clients, claiming to be her assistant and informing them that Victoria was going through a difficult time and might not be able to complete their cases. She'd even sent emails from fake accounts to Victoria's professional contacts, spreading rumors about her competence and reliability. Victoria sat in her office, surrounded by evidence of Diana's campaign of destruction. As a private investigator, she'd seen manipulation before, but this was personal warfare disguised as concern. Diana had been methodically destroying every aspect of Victoria's life, from her wedding to her career to her relationship with David. The most shocking discovery came when Victoria hacked into Diana's email account using skills she'd learned during her cybersecurity training. What she found was a detailed plan spanning 6 months, outlining exactly how Diana intended to destroy Victoria's life. Diana's emails revealed her true motivation. She'd been planning to convince Victoria's father to change his will, removing Victoria entirely and leaving everything to Diana. The wedding destruction was just the first phase. She'd been planning to isolate Victoria from her family, ruin her career, and drive her to leave town permanently. Once she's gone, Richard will finally see that I'm the only family he needs, Diana had written to her sister. I've already been working on him, showing him how unstable she is. After the wedding disaster, he'll be ready to cut her off completely. Victoria discovered that Diana had been drugging her father's coffee with mild sedatives during her visits, making him more susceptible to her suggestions. She'd been gradually poisoning his relationship with Victoria, sharing fabricated stories about Victoria's selfish behavior and disrespectful attitude. The most horrifying revelation was Diana's backup plan. If the wedding sabotage didn't work, she'd arranged for Victoria to be arrested on fabricated charges. She'd already planted stolen items in Victoria's apartment and was planning to call the police, claiming Victoria had been stealing from her father's house. Victoria had seen enough. As a private investigator, she knew exactly how to gather evidence for a criminal case. She'd been documenting everything, recording phone calls, and building an ironclad case against Diana. But she wanted more than just justice. She wanted Diana to experience the same systematic destruction she'd inflicted. The first phase of Victoria's revenge was exposing Diana's lies to the wedding vendors. Using her professional credentials, Victoria arranged meetings with each vendor, presenting evidence of Diana's impersonation and fraud. Within 48 hours, all of her wedding services were restored, and the vendors were threatening to sue Diana for the damage she caused to their reputations. But Victoria didn't stop there. She discovered that Diana had been having an affair with her married neighbor, and she'd been embezzling money from the charity where she volunteered. As a private investigator, Victoria had access to financial records and surveillance equipment that most people couldn't obtain. The revenge campaign began with Diana's social circle. Victoria created fake social media accounts and began sharing evidence of Diana's affairs and financial crimes in the same private Facebook groups where Diana had been spreading lies. She made sure Diana's friends saw photos of her with her married lover, along with bank records showing her theft from the charity. Victoria's next target was Diana's professional reputation. Diana worked as a real estate agent, and Victoria began contacting her clients with evidence of her dishonest practices. She'd been overcharging clients, taking kickbacks from contractors, and lying about property values to increase her commissions. The most satisfying moment came when Victoria exposed Diana's plan to her father. She'd been recording their conversations for weeks, gathering evidence of Diana's manipulation and drugging. When Victoria played the recordings for her father, showing him how Diana had been poisoning his coffee and lying about his daughter, his reaction was immediate and decisive. "She's been drugging me," Richard asked, his voice shaking with rage. "She's been trying to turn me against my own daughter." Victoria presented her father with Diana's emails, the evidence of her financial crimes, and the recordings of her conversations with her lover, the man who had been gradually turned against. His daughter suddenly saw the truth about the woman he'd married. The confrontation happened at what was supposed to be Victoria's wedding day. Instead of walking down the aisle, Victoria stood in her father's living room, presenting Diana with evidence of her crimes while David and both families watched in shock. "Did you really think you could destroy my life and get away with it?" Victoria asked, her voice calm and professional. "I'm a private investigator, Diana. I make a living exposing people like you." Diana's face went pale as Victoria presented folder after folder of evidence. The affair, the embezzlement, the fraud, the drugging. Everything Diana had done was documented with the precision of a criminal investigation. "You tried to ruin my wedding, destroy my career, and turn my father against me," Victoria continued. "But what you didn't realize is that I have the skills and resources to uncover every secret you've been hiding." The final blow came when Victoria revealed Diana's financial crimes to the authorities. She'd been embezzling from the charity for 2 years, stealing money meant for homeless families. The evidence Victoria had gathered was so comprehensive that Diana was arrested within hours. David, who had been manipulated into doubting Victoria, was horrified to learn how Diana had been lying to his family. The wedding was rescheduled, and Diana's absence made it the most peaceful celebration Victoria could have imagined. But Victoria's revenge wasn't finished. She discovered that Diana had been running similar schemes against other women in her previous marriages. There was a pattern of manipulation, financial abuse, and systematic destruction that spanned decades. Victoria used her professional network to contact Diana's previous victims, helping them build cases against her. The woman who had tried to destroy one wedding ended up facing criminal charges from multiple states, with victims dating back 15 years. The trial became a landmark case in financial elder abuse and domestic manipulation. Diana was convicted on 12 counts of fraud, embezzlement, and elder abuse. She was sentenced to 8 years in prison and ordered to pay restitution to her victims. Victoria's father, freed from Diana's manipulation, became closer to his daughter than ever before. He'd been horrified to learn how thoroughly he'd been deceived, and he spent months rebuilding the relationship Diana had tried to destroy. The wedding, when it finally happened, was everything Victoria had dreamed of. David's family, who had been turned against her by Diana's lies, welcomed her warmly after learning the truth. The celebration was filled with love, laughter, and the satisfaction of justice served. 6 months after Diana's conviction, Victoria received a letter from another woman named Patricia, who had recognized the signs of manipulation in her own stepmother after reading about Victoria's case in the news. "Because of your courage in exposing Diana's methods," Patricia wrote, "I was able to identify the same patterns in my own family. I stopped my stepmother before she could destroy my relationship with my father and steal his assets. You didn't just save yourself, you saved me too." Victoria realized that her private investigation skills had protected not just her own family, but had exposed a predator who had been targeting vulnerable families for years. Diana's conviction had led to new awareness about step-family manipulation and financial elder abuse. As Victoria looked back on the experience, she understood that Diana's biggest mistake had been targeting someone with the exact skills needed to expose her. The woman who had tried to destroy a private investigator's life had instead provided her with the most important case of her career. The investigation had revealed systematic abuse that spanned decades, protecting future victims and bringing justice to those who had suffered in silence. Victoria's professional expertise had turned Diana's weapon against her, proving that sometimes the best revenge is simply the truth. Years later, when Victoria told the story to other private investigators, she would always end with the same observation. "She spent months planning to destroy my life, but she never bothered to research who I really was. That's the difference between a predator and a professional. I do my homework." Diana had thought she was dealing with a naive bride who would be too emotional to fight back effectively. Instead, she'd encountered a skilled investigator who had spent years learning how to uncover the truth and protect the innocent. The stepmother's plan for destruction had become the foundation for her own downfall, proving that justice has a way of finding those who seek it.